you having that insight and that forethought, has allowed your firm to grow exponentially over the past years. I mean, tell the audience, how much has your firm actually grown since you started to today, percentage wise?
Well, we've grown, I mean, from zero, to basically we've experienced 200% growth year over year. Right. And that's been a function, of course, of, very good SOPs, a very strong team, and very efficient marketing, to be honest with you. It's been really a combination of those three, meaning we have a lot of internal KPIs that we track to ensure that time on desk for each file is optimized. We are very efficient with our marketing spend. Everything that we do is totally digital because if you can't track it, you can't improve it. If you can't track it, you can't improve it. So I really attribute our growth to, the combination of factors, those three things, right? Building out a really great team, hiring A players, having, effective SOPs in place, and then really being, tight on the marketing in terms of tracking ad spend and conversion rates and efficiency.
You touched on a very interesting topic that a lot of people, in most scenarios, they fail to find its importance, right? Marketing, people usually think, hey, that's the revenue generator, that's what's bringing the direct cash into the business. But in reality, I remember our first time talking, you had a very strong emphasis on the intake process. And believe it or not, and I know you're adamant in regards to this, if your intake process is flawed, it doesn't matter how good your marketing is, because it's intake that really takes that thing that you've lined up and it knocks it down. And once you've mastered the art of intake, you can obviously increase your KPIs, your conversion rates go up, your referral rates go up as well, because people end up, liking to work with you. They like the response, they like the attention, they like the fact that, you're there to solve their problem and not, hey, I'll call you back when I get a chance, or you're just a case number or a file on a desk. This importance is something that I think a lot of firm owners in the beginning fail to really prioritize. How did you know that, intake process was one of the most important feats for the firm?
Well, that's a very good question. I just want to, kind of answer that holistically. Look, customer service is something that we all care about, right? For me, it wasn't an afterthought. It was something that I applied my own experience as a consumer to. And I know as a consumer myself, when I have a very good experience with when I first call a place, whatever kind of business it is, that I'm more likely to spend money at that business. So I applied that same principle to my firm. And I think that, you can agree as well, is that, your customer journey, begins the moment that you call an establishment. So why would that be any different for a law firm? Right. And, my thing is, if you're going to spend money on marketing, you better be spending as much or more on your reception or intake or whatever you want to call it. Right. Because marketing and intake go hand in hand.
Yes, sir.
If your intake process and people aren't rock solid, all the marketing money in the world is going to be wasted. And, it's interesting. I've spoken to a couple other marketing professionals who've told me, look, we've been able to, get really good results in terms of, cost per lead, etc. But then when we do an audit of the law firm's intake process, they do a sample call or something like that, the answer rate is subpar, right? And so this is, for any law firm owners out there, I would really encourage you to do a thorough audit, or have your director of operations do a very thorough audit of your intake team to make sure that they're operating at the standard that you would operate at if you were answering the phone. And that's something that I'm very proud of, that I think that the folks that we have now have done a fantastic job of doing, right? They operate at the same level that I did when I was doing intake. And now it makes me more confident as a firm owner to go spend more money and allocate more resources to marketing, because I'm confident that on the back end, when someone calls, they're going to have a great experience with us.
And you couldn't have said it better. I mean, marketing, intake, they go hand in hand. It's like lining it up and knocking it down. What we've seen, and I can tell you, in real life experience, I've worked with over 60 law firms. And in reality, I've had firms that I've had to tell them, hey, we no longer are going to be working with you. I don't want to say technically fired them, but we, had an early termination in the contract because in a performance based business where we have to rely on pretty much our clients to fulfill that conversion, and we run audits all the time. We usually run an audit in the beginning of the month and the end of the month to make sure that the workflows are still on point. Any updates that need to be done in the integrations are still active. And, so much so that his client acquisition rate went up 3 times and his cost per lead went up 3 times. And it was simply because the same leads were calling back again and again and again and going to the ads. And then eventually they started sending messages and say, hey, I've called 3, 4 times. I was trying to get in touch with this guy to have my case.